What's up, guys? This is Bill from Ozone Fitness Training Center, here to talk to you about glute training and why it's important. I just want to emphasize the fact that the glutes are a very undertrained muscle in the gym, especially by guys. Now, the glutes are important for a couple of reasons. First of all, postural and health. So if you're going to pick up something on the ground and you have poor posture and you have weak glutes and weak hips, you're probably going to do something like this. You find something on the ground and you're going to flex the low back, you're going to put yourself in a flexion, or what you're going to do is you're going to step and you're going to do this and you're going to put some shearing force on your knee, which you don't want. As opposed to if you have strong glutes, you're going to pick up something correctly, you're going to load the hips like this, with a straight back, tension here, and that's a correct way. Now, if you repeat that bad pattern 1,000 times a week, you can imagine the kind of cumulative damage you're going to get to your back and your knees. A big reason why people have these problems is weak glutes. The second function that we want to address is performance. Every serious exercise when it comes to the gym, squatting, deadlifting, jumping, and sprinting all involve hip extension to some degree. So if you train it and you're strong at it, you're going to be able to do bigger, more important stuff in the gym. Unfortunately, most people in the gym use the wrong equipment. They just rely on machines and they just kind of move it from point A to point B. We want to focus on exercises, again, that fight tension in the hardest way possible, directly against gravity. Using free weights, you get the highest muscle activation. Now, next thing I want to address is the importance of hip flexor stretching before you do glute training. We have something called reciprocal inhibition, and what that means is if one muscle on one side of the body is tight, and the other side, the opposing or antagonist muscle, is not going to fire as well. So, when it comes down to it, hip flexors, flex the hip, glutes, the whole group, and one function, extend the hip. So we have opposing functions, flexion and extension. Now, from sitting, and from everything we're doing, like driving, sitting, whatever, we're going to have tight hip flexors. So if those are tight, like this, we're going to get down, we're going to put the hands in the hips, and we're just going to rock in and stretch that back leg, get those hip flexors loosened up before we do any kind of glute training. So we can just kind of rock in and out, do about 5 times 20 seconds, or depending on your needs, and we should get a pretty good effect. Now, the glutes have 4 functions when it comes to training. We have abduction, okay? We have external rotation, so rotating from the whole hip. We have hip extension, which I said before is like this, extending the hip. And we have posterior pelvic tilt. So we have the hips tilting from here to here. And the glutes and the abdominals actually help both functions. So we're going to go over 4 main exercises here with my friend Jesus. We're going to go over first abduction, external rotation. We're going to go over what's called a straight leg raise on the ground. So we're going to set up Jesus, butt, knees, feet, shoulders, and head right up against the back, so everything's in line. So just get everything back like this. Bring that head back all the way. Good. Now what we're going to do, we have 2 functions here. We're going to externally rotate from the hip, so not just from the foot, but actually turning from the femur, like this. Now we set him up against the wall so we have minimal compensation. And so what I'm going to cue him to do is to squeeze your quad as hard as possible. We have this hand right here, and then we're just going to slide up the wall and move from the hip, about 35 degrees, and then come down right before you touch the bottom leg, right there. So we work 2 functions with this basic exercise. You've probably seen most people do this before, but it's underrated. Right there, he's sliding up against the wall. You feel that, Jesus?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's one exercise we can go through. Next, we're going to go into hip extension. So come on up. And we're going to go into a single leg deadlift, bent knee deadlift. Okay, so Jesus here, kettlebell in the opposite hand. We have left foot forward. All right, kettlebell in the right hand and right leg off the ground. Okay, now we have the knee bent. Okay, and then we're loading at the hips, going forward. Okay, right there, hold it. Got tension here. Now extend from the hips to come up. Squeeze your glutes as hard as possible. Let's do one more. Sit back on it. So we're loading right here, and then we're moving from here and extending the hips. Squeeze the glutes as hard as possible. So we have hip extension right there. All right. Next, we're going to have him lie down on the ground, supine position. And we're going to go over posterior pelvic tilting and hip hyperextension. So we have a basic exercise, glute bridges in the supine position. Bring your feet close, lift your toes, okay? and we're just going to cue them to push through the heels, squeeze your butt up to the top, and rotate those hips back like that, okay? And then go down. So coming up and going to hip hyperextension. So just when he thinks he can go as high as possible, he's going a little higher by squeezing the glutes, and then coming down. And that's going to rotate the pelvis forward, okay? Then we can add a barbell to that. So we'll just roll that onto him, right across the hips. And because the glutes are fast twitch muscle fibers, that means they respond really well to, generally speaking, heavier weights, especially hip extension, and fast contractions. So we're just going to have him do a couple reps here, do about 5, come up explosively, squeeze the glutes, and down. So 1, come up, squeeze the glutes. 2, so we're going into hip hyperextension, and we're rotating the pelvis posteriorly. 3, 4, and 5. Beautiful. So we have 4 functions of glute training, underrated muscle group. This is Bill from Ozone Fitness Training Center signing off.